Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from space, just like the 47 other worlds he had conquered for the Zelkari Empire. His forearms crossed behind his back as he studied the readings from his scouts. "Another primitive world," he said to his second-in-command, Officer Kral. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. They still use chemical rockets to barely reach their own moon." Kral nodded his scaled head. "The conquest should take no more than a few days, Admiral. Our advanced scouts report their weapons cannot even scratch our hull armor." The Zelkari fleet was impressive. 50 massive dreadnoughts, each one the size of a small city, hung in space above Earth. Their dark metal hulls absorbed light, making them look like holes in the starfield. Smaller cruiser ships buzzed around them like deadly insects. Down on Earth, people looked up at the sky in terror. The alien ships blocked out the sun over major cities. News reports showed panic in the streets as world leaders tried to figure out what to do. "Sir," came a voice from the communications station. "We're receiving multiple transmissions from the planet. They seem to be trying to communicate." Vextar waved a clawed hand. "Standard procedure. Send them the surrender terms in their primitive languages. If they refuse, we begin the assault." The message that went down to Earth was simple and cold. Surrender completely, and the humans would become workers for the Zelkari Empire. Refuse, and their cities would burn. World leaders met in emergency sessions. The United Nations building in New York was packed as representatives from every nation tried to find a solution. Military commanders showed satellite images of the alien fleet. The ships were too big, too advanced. Every weapon Earth had seemed like a toy compared to what hung above them. "We have to try to fight," said General Patricia Hayes, the American Joint Chief of Staff. "We cannot just give up our planet." "With what?" asked the British representative. "Our best missiles would not even make a dent in one of those ships." The deadline came and went. Earth's answer was not surrender, but defiance. Fighter jets launched from bases around the world. Naval ships fired their biggest missiles. Nuclear submarines released their deadliest weapons. Vextar watched the human attack with mild interest. Tiny metal craft flew toward his ships like angry bees. Missiles exploded harmlessly against his shields. The nuclear weapons created pretty flashes of light but did no damage at all. "Begin Phase 1, he ordered. The Zelkari ships opened fire. Beams of red energy lanced down from space, cutting through Earth's atmosphere like hot knives through butter. Military bases vanished in seconds. Aircraft carriers became clouds of steam on the ocean surface. The human fighter jets simply disappeared when the alien weapons touched them. Within 6 hours, most of Earth's military was gone. The aliens landed their smaller ships in major cities around the world. Zelkari soldiers poured out, wearing powered armor that made them look like walking tanks. They were tall and reptilian with 4 arms and yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. The humans who fought back were crushed easily. The Zelkari weapons could punch through tank armor like it was paper. Their soldiers moved faster than human eyes could follow. City after city fell as the aliens set up control centers and began rounding up prisoners. But something bothered Vextar as he read the reports from the surface. In some places, the humans gave up too easily. They laid down their weapons and walked into the detention camps without a fight. Yet in other places, small groups fought with desperate fury, using tactics that seemed almost suicidal. "The humans are acting strangely," Kral reported. "In Moscow, they surrendered the entire city without firing a shot. But in the mountains of Afghanistan, small groups are still fighting using primitive weapons." Vextar studied the tactical displays. The pattern made no sense. Most conquered species either fought to the death or gave up completely. These humans seemed to be doing both at the same time. "What are our intelligence teams reporting?" he asked. "They've captured several human leaders and scientists. The neural compliance implants are being installed as planned. But, sir, there's something odd. Even with the implants, some humans continue to show signs of independent thought." This was unusual. The neural implants had worked perfectly on every other species. They made prisoners obedient and stopped them from planning escapes or rebellions. Over the next few days, the Zelkari set up their occupation. massive processing centers, were built to catalog human resources. Factories were converted to produce goods for the empire. Humans were sorted into work groups based on their skills and physical abilities. Dr. Sarah Chen found herself in a detention facility outside what used to be Los Angeles. She was a physicist who had worked on quantum mechanics before the invasion. Now she swept floors and carried supplies for her alien captors, but Sarah was watching everything. She memorized the patrol patterns of the guards. She studied the alien technology whenever she could get close to it. The energy readings from their weapons and vehicles were unlike anything in human science, but somehow, patterns were starting to emerge in her mind. She was not the only one. In detention camps around the world, human prisoners were doing more than just surviving. They were learning. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison had been captured when his naval base was destroyed. He found himself in a work camp in what used to be Texas, building components for Zelkari equipment. The aliens thought humans were too primitive to understand their technology. They were wrong. Jake noticed that the alien power cells had a specific frequency pattern. When he mentioned this to other prisoners, they began sharing their own observations. A former computer programmer had figured out part of the alien communication system. An engineer had spotted weaknesses in their vehicle designs. The aliens had made their first mistake. They thought humans were like every other conquered species, but humans had something different. They did not just accept their fate. They adapted. In his command ship, Vextar received more troubling reports. Human prisoners were asking too many questions. They were looking at Zelkari equipment with intense curiosity. Some had even been caught trying to touch alien machinery when they thought no one was watching. Perhaps we should separate the intelligent ones, Kral suggested. Put the scientists and engineers in isolation. No, Vextar said after thinking for a moment. That would only make them more suspicious. Continue with standard procedures. No species has ever posed a threat after the initial conquest. These humans will learn to accept their place. But deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that something was different about this world. The humans surrendered their cities, but not their spirits. They obeyed orders but never stopped thinking. Even with neural implants controlling their actions, their eyes still held a spark that made Vextar uncomfortable. 3 months after the invasion began, Admiral Vextar stood, once again on his bridge looking down at the conquered Earth. His occupation was proceeding according to plan. Human production centers were operating efficiently. The population was under control, yet he could not shake the feeling that he was missing something important. The humans were too quiet, too cooperative. It reminded him of the calm before a storm. He had conquered 47 worlds and never felt this unease. Perhaps it was just the strangeness of this particular species. Or perhaps, though he would never admit it to himself, Admiral Vextar had made the biggest mistake of his long military career. The humans were not broken. They were learning. 3 months had passed since the Zelkari conquered Earth. Admiral Vextar thought the hard work was over. He was wrong. The first strange report came from the detention facility in former Los Angeles. Dr. Sarah Chen had been caught examining a broken piece of Zelkari equipment. When the guards questioned her, she claimed she was just curious about the pretty colors the device made when it powered up. But the facility commander was worried. She knew which parts to look at, he told Vextar over the communication link. The human focused on the power coupling and energy flow indicators. No primitive species should understand those components. Vextar dismissed the concern. One curious prisoner means nothing. Keep watching her, but do not worry about it. More reports followed. In the work camp in Texas, human prisoners had started asking questions about the alien machinery they were forced to maintain. They wanted to know why certain parts glowed, how the energy flowed, what happened when different components were connected. The Zelkari guards thought the questions were harmless. They even felt proud showing off their superior technology to the primitive humans. What could these creatures possibly understand about advanced alien science? Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison was asking those questions. Every day he worked on Zelkari equipment, cleaning and maintaining it under guard supervision. Every day he learned something new. The alien power cells used a form of energy that human science had never discovered. But Jake was starting to see patterns. When the power flowed through certain crystals, they changed color. When the energy reached specific levels, the machinery hummed at different frequencies. He shared this knowledge with other prisoners during their brief rest periods. Maria Santos, who had been an electrical engineer, explained how she thought the alien computers processed information. David Kim, a former programmer, had figured out basic symbols in the alien language by watching their display screens. The Zelkari were impressed by how well the humans were adapting to their work assignments. The prisoners seemed eager to learn and quick to understand new tasks. It made the occupation run more smoothly. They did not realize they were teaching the humans how to defeat them. Dr. Sarah Chen made her breakthrough on a rainy Tuesday morning. She was cleaning the laboratory section of her detention facility when she found a damaged Zelkari scanner. The device was supposed to be broken beyond repair, but Sarah had been studying alien technology for months. She carefully examined the internal components. The crystal matrix was cracked, but the power core was intact. Using techniques she had learned from watching the guards repair other equipment, Sarah managed to get the scanner working again. For the first time since the invasion, a human had successfully repaired alien technology. Sarah did not report her success to the guards. Instead, she used the scanner to examine other Zelkari devices in secret. What she discovered amazed her. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it followed logical principles. Once you understood the basic concepts, everything else started to make sense. More importantly, Sarah realized that human science was not as far behind as everyone thought. The Zelkari used different methods to achieve similar results. Their energy systems were more efficient, but they worked on principles that humans could grasp and possibly improve. She began keeping notes, scratching observations into the dirt, floor of her sleeping area, and memorizing everything she learned. Sarah was building a complete picture of how Zelkari technology functioned. In work camps around the world, other humans were doing the same thing. The first act of sabotage happened in the former New York Processing Center. A group of human workers, led by a former factory supervisor named Tom Bradley, had been assigned to maintain Zelkari communication equipment. They had spent weeks learning how the system worked. One night, Tom made a small adjustment to the power flow regulator. To the Zelkari guards, everything seemed normal. The communication system still worked perfectly. But the modification Tom had made created a subtle interference pattern that would disrupt signals during peak usage periods. The interference was so minor that it took the Zelkari 3 days to notice it. When they did, they assumed it was normal equipment wear. They never suspected sabotage because no conquered species had ever understood their technology well enough to modify it. Tom and his team had proven something important. Humans could not only understand alien technology, they could improve it and use it against their captors. Word of these small victories spread through the human population in ways the Zelkari could not monitor. Prisoners developed coded languages, using work assignments to pass information between different camps. They shared technical knowledge and planned coordinated actions. The resistance was being born, but it was unlike any resistance the Zelkari had ever faced. Previous conquered species had relied on primitive weapons and desperate tactics. The human resistance was learning to use the aliens' own technology against them. Admiral Vexitar began receiving troubling reports from his commanders on the surface. Equipment failures were becoming more common. Communication systems sometimes malfunctioned. At critical moments, vehicle maintenance required more frequent repairs than normal. The human workers seemed to be trying hard, reported Commander Zeth from the European occupation zone, but their primitive understanding might be causing them to make mistakes with our equipment. Vexitar was not convinced. In his long military career, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something about the pattern of these failures seemed too convenient to be accidental. Increase security around all technical facilities, he ordered, and run full diagnostic checks on any equipment the humans have accessed. The diagnostic checks revealed something disturbing. The equipment was not breaking down randomly. Someone was making precise modifications that created specific types of failures. The work was too sophisticated to be accidental damage from primitive minds. "Sir," Krall reported, "our intelligence division believes the humans may have developed some understanding of our technology." "Impossible," Vexitar said immediately. No species has ever learned our science in less than decades of study. These humans have had only months. But privately, Vextar was beginning to worry. He had conquered 47 worlds, and every conquest had followed the same pattern. Initial resistance followed by acceptance followed by decades of peaceful occupation. Earth was different. The humans had stopped fighting, but they had not stopped resisting. They worked in the factories and detention camps, but they never stopped learning. Every day they understood more about Zelkari technology. Every day, they became more dangerous. Dr. Sarah Chen made her second breakthrough while examining a Zelkari weapon that had been damaged during the initial invasion. The energy rifle used a complex system of crystals and power cells to create its deadly beam. But Sarah realized that the same principles could be used for other purposes. She began experimenting in secret, using scavenged components and materials from the detention camp, working only during rest periods and hiding her progress from the guards. Sarah built her own version of a Zelkari power cell. It was crude compared to the alien original, but it worked. For the first time since the invasion, a human had created technology based on Zelkari science. Sarah's success proved something that terrified Admiral Vextar when he eventually learned about it. Humans were not just copying alien technology. They were understanding it well enough to innovate and improve upon it. The conquered had become students. Soon they would become teachers. And after that, they would become something the Zelkari Empire had never faced before. The first human-built Zelkari weapon would be ready within days. The Resistance was about to take a giant leap forward, and Admiral Vextar's occupation was about to become a war. The explosion that destroyed the Zelkari communication tower in Berlin marked the beginning of the real war. Admiral Vextar watched the reports with growing alarm as similar attacks happened around the globe. The humans had stopped pretending to be helpless. "How did they get explosives past our security?" demanded Commander Zeth. The answer came from the investigation team. The humans had not used traditional explosives. They had built their own weapons using modified Zelkari power cells. The weapons were crude but effective, and they used technology that the aliens never thought the humans could understand. Dr. Sarah Chen was no longer alone in her secret laboratory. 3 other prisoners had joined her work, including Maria Santos, the electrical engineer, and Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a former robotics specialist from Japan. Together, they had created the first human resistance technology center in the basement of their detention facility. "The power coupling is still unstable," Maria said, examining their latest creation. "We need better crystal matrices." "I can get them," replied Yuki. "The maintenance schedule has me working on scanner units tomorrow. If I can create a small malfunction, some components might need to be replaced." Sarah nodded. Their group had become experts at making Zelkari equipment break down in specific ways. When the guards brought damaged devices for disposal, the humans salvaged the working parts. But their biggest achievement was not technology, it was communication. Using modified Zelkari equipment, they had established contact with resistance cells around the world. The network grew daily as more humans learned to build and operate the communication devices. Information flowed between continents faster than the Zelkari realized. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison had become a leader of the Texas Resistance Cell. His group had grown from 5 prisoners to over 200 humans working in secret throughout the region. They had stolen weapons, vehicles, and most importantly, an intact Zelkari cruiser. The capture of the cruiser had been Jake's idea. The ship landed routinely at the work camp to pick up processed materials. Jake's team had learned to predict exactly when it would arrive and how many guards it would carry. When the cruiser landed on schedule, everything seemed normal. Human workers loaded cargo containers under guard supervision. The Zelkari crew prepared for departure. They never saw the attack coming. Jake's team had spent weeks studying Zelkari combat tactics and equipment. They knew that the alien soldiers were faster and stronger than humans, but they also knew the aliens' weaknesses. The Zelkari relied too heavily on their technology and did not expect coordinated attacks from primitive enemies. The human assault began with electromagnetic pulse, devices built from modified power cells. The EMPs disabled the cruiser's weapons and shields. Before the Zelkari could react, human fighters attacked from multiple directions using stolen alien weapons. The battle lasted only minutes. The Zelkari crew was overwhelmed by the speed and coordination of the human attack. Jake's team had captured their first starship, but taking the cruiser was only the beginning. Learning to use it would be the real challenge. "The control systems are completely different from anything we know," reported Lisa Park, a former airline pilot who had joined Jake's group. "But the basic principles seem similar to our aircraft." Within 48 hours, the humans had figured out how to operate the cruiser's basic functions. Within a week, they were flying it. Within 2 weeks, they had improved its weapon systems by modifying the power flow patterns. The enhanced cruiser became the flagship of the growing human resistance. It could outfight any Zelkari ship of the same class and served as a mobile base for resistance operations. Admiral Vextar finally understood what he was facing. The humans were not just learning Zelkari technology, they were making it better. This was something that had never happened in the history of the Empire. Request: immediate reinforcements, he told his communications officer. Send a priority message to High Command. Earth requires additional fleet support. The response from Zelkari High Command was swift and angry. No occupied world had ever required reinforcements after the initial conquest phase. Admiral Vextar was told to solve his problems with existing resources or face replacement. But Vextar knew his career was the least of his concerns. The human resistance was growing stronger every day. They had weapons, ships, and most dangerous of all, they had momentum. The humans had also discovered something that changed everything. While examining captured Zelkari computer systems, Dr. Sarah Chen had found encoded messages between the alien fleet and their homeworlds. "They're not just conquerors," she told Jake during a secret meeting between resistance cells. "They're refugees. Something is chasing them across the galaxy, destroying entire star systems." The messages revealed the existence of the Devourers, ancient machines that consumed everything in their path. The Zelkari Empire was not expanding for glory or resources. They were running for their lives, conquering worlds to find soldiers and materials for their desperate war. This knowledge gave the resistance a new advantage. They understood their enemy's motivation and could predict their actions. More importantly, they realized that the Zelkari were not invincible. If ancient machines could threaten them, then humans might have a chance. The resistance began planning its most ambitious operation yet. Instead of small raids and sabotage, they would launch coordinated attacks against major Zelkari installations around the world. The plan required perfect timing and communication between resistance cells on every continent. It also required weapons and technology that did not exist yet. The humans would have to build them. Dr. Sarah Chen led the technological development while Jake Morrison coordinated military planning. Other resistance leaders took charge of intelligence gathering and resource acquisition. The network of human rebels had become a sophisticated military organization, but Admiral Vexitar was not sitting idle. He had finally realized the scope of the threat and was preparing his own counterstrike. The Zelkari would attempt to break human resistance with a show of overwhelming force. "Prepare for orbital bombardment of all major population centers," he ordered his fleet commanders. "If we cannot control the humans, we will break their spirit." The bombardment began at dawn on a Tuesday morning. Beams of energy lanced down from the Zelkari fleet, targeting cities where resistance activity had been detected. New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other cities were marked for destruction. But the bombardment revealed something that shocked Admiral Vextar to his core. When the energy beams struck the target areas, they hit empty space. The cities were still there, but they were empty of people. The humans had known the attack was coming. More disturbing, the bombardment revealed massive underground installations that the Zelkari had never detected. Tunnel networks connected cities across entire continents. Hidden factories produced human-made weapons and vehicles. Underground farms provided food for millions of people. The humans had not just been building resistance cells. They had been building a hidden civilization. The bombardment had failed to break human spirit. Instead, it revealed that the resistance was far larger and more advanced than the Zelkari had imagined. The humans had been preparing for this war. Since the day the aliens arrived, Admiral Vextar stared at the images from the surface in horror. He had not conquered Earth. He had awakened something that might destroy his entire empire. The humans were no longer prisoners or workers. They had become an army, and they were ready to fight back with technology that rivaled his own. The real war was just beginning. Admiral Vextar had commanded space fleets for over 30 years, but he had never seen anything like the display on his tactical screen. Human ships were rising from underground launch bays around the planet. Not stolen Zelkari vessels, but entirely new designs that combined alien technology with human engineering. "How many ships are launching?" he asked his tactical officer. "We count over 300 so far, sir, and they're still coming." The human fleet was impossible. The aliens had monitored Earth's industrial capacity carefully. There was no way the primitive planet could have built so many spacecraft in such a short time. Yet the evidence was right there on the scanner screens. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the underground complex beneath former Los Angeles. Around her, hundreds of human technicians worked at stations filled with hybrid technology that mixed Zelkari science with human innovation. "All ships report ready for combat," announced Jake Morrison from his position at the tactical display. "The orbital defense platforms are online. Ground-based energy weapons are charged and ready." Sarah nodded, but her attention was focused on a different screen. For months she had been working on the most important project of the war. Using captured Zelkari consciousness transfer technology, she had created something that no alien species had ever achieved. "Network synchronization at 97%, reported Dr. Tanaka. "All resistance cells are connected." The consciousness network was Sarah's greatest breakthrough. By modifying Zelkari neural interface technology, the humans had created a system that allowed instant communication and coordination between every resistance fighter on Earth. They could share thoughts, memories, and tactical information faster than any traditional communication method. But the network was more than just communication. It allowed humans to combine their knowledge and intuition in ways that created new insights and solutions. An engineer in Tokyo could instantly share a technical breakthrough with a soldier in New York. A strategist in London could coordinate with a pilot in Sydney as if they were in the same room. The Zelkari had consciousness transfer technology, but they had never thought to use it this way. Their rigid military culture prevented the kind of creative collaboration that the humans had developed. Admiral Vextar watched in amazement as the human fleet moved with perfect coordination. Every ship seemed to know exactly what the others were doing. Their tactics were flawless, their timing was precise, and their weapons were devastatingly effective. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet," reported his communications officer. "Put it through." The face that appeared on the main screen was human, but the eyes held an intelligence that seemed beyond any single individual. Dr. Sarah Chen spoke, but her words carried the collective knowledge of millions of resistance fighters. "Admiral Vextar, we need to talk. Not as enemies, but as two species facing a common threat." Vextar was confused. "What threat?" "You are our prisoners. Your planet is conquered." Sarah's expression remained calm. "Your planet is not conquered, Admiral. Your empire is dying. The Devourers are less than 5 years from your core worlds. Your fleets are scattered across the galaxy, trying to hold territory you cannot defend. You came to Earth looking for soldiers and resources for a war you cannot win." The Admiral felt his blood turn cold. How did the humans know about the Devourers? That information was classified at the highest levels of Zelkari command. "We accessed your computer networks months ago," Sarah continued, as if reading his thoughts. "We know about your war with the machines. We know your species is desperate and afraid, but we also know something you don't." "What could you possibly know that we do not?" Sarah smiled. "We know how to beat them." On the tactical display, Admiral Vextar watched human ships engage his fleet with weapons and tactics he had never seen before. The humans were not just copying Zelkari technology anymore. They were creating new forms of warfare that combined the best elements from dozens of different approaches. Human fighters moved in patterns that seemed to predict where Zelkari ships would be before they got there. Human weapons fired energy bursts that adapted their frequency to penetrate alien shields. Human tactics used coordinated swarm attacks that overwhelmed individual targets while protecting the overall fleet. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to learn and adapt in real time. When a Zelkari weapon proved effective against human shields, the humans modified their defense systems within minutes. When Zelkari ships tried a new tactical formation, the humans had counters ready before the maneuver was complete. "They're fighting like they can read our minds," Commander Kral observed. Vextar realized the truth was even worse than that. The humans were not reading Zelkari minds. They were thinking faster and more creatively than his forces could respond. 2. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, half of Vextar's fleet was destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships had been forced to retreat to the edge of the solar system. For the first time in the history of the Zelkari Empire, a conquered world had defeated its occupying force. But Sarah Chen was not finished. Using the consciousness network, she had been analyzing captured Devourer technology fragments that the Zelkari had unknowingly brought to Earth in their database systems. The Devourers were ancient artificial intelligences that had been consuming civilizations for millions of years. They were incredibly advanced, but they followed predictable patterns based on pure logic and efficiency. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology, while adding the unpredictable element of biological creativity. "The machines think in straight lines," Sarah explained to the Resistance leadership. "They calculate optimal solutions based on known variables, but they cannot adapt to truly original thinking. They have never encountered a species that learns and innovates as fast as humans do." Dr. Tanaka had been studying the Devourer fragments for weeks. Their technology is based on perfect efficiency, but efficiency can become a weakness if you can introduce chaos into their systems. Jake Morrison understood the implications immediately. "You're talking about using our ability to innovate as a weapon. We don't just fight them with superior technology, we fight them with superior adaptability." The plan that emerged from the Human Consciousness Network was ambitious beyond anything attempted in galactic history. The humans would not just defend Earth. They would take the war to the Devourers themselves. But first, they needed allies. And there was only one logical choice. Admiral Vexitar received Sarah's second transmission 3 days after his defeat. This time, she made an offer that changed everything. "We propose an alliance," she said. "Your empire has the ships and the experience. We have the technology and the tactics to win this war. Together, we can save both our species." Vexitar was skeptical. "Why would you help the species that conquered your world?" "Because you're not our real enemy," Sarah replied. "The Devourers are coming whether we fight each other or not. If they reach Earth, both our species die. If we work together, both our species might survive." The Admiral studied the human's face on his screen. In her eyes, he saw something that had been missing from his own people for generations. He saw hope. "What are you offering?" "A new kind of warfare. A new kind of technology. A new kind of civilization that combines the best of both our species." Sarah paused. "We're offering you a chance to win a war you've been losing for centuries." "Admiral," Vexter made the decision that would change galactic history. "I want to meet with your leaders face to face." The meeting was arranged for the following day. For the first time since the invasion began, Zelkari and human representatives would sit down as equals to discuss their mutual survival. Neither species knew it yet, but that meeting would mark the end of the Age of Conquest and the beginning of something entirely new in the galaxy. The humans had proven they could not be conquered. Now they would prove they could lead. The meeting took place aboard a neutral space station that the humans had built in Earth's orbit. Admiral Vextar had never seen anything like it. The structure combined Zelkari engineering with human creativity, creating something that was both familiar and completely new. Dr. Sarah Chen met him at the docking bay, flanked by Jake Morrison and other resistance leaders. But Vexitar could sense that she was still connected to the consciousness network. When she spoke, she represented not just herself, but the collective will of humanity. "Welcome to Harmony Station," she said simply. "We built it in 3 weeks, using plans that combined our knowledge with yours. 3 weeks. The Admiral's own engineers would have needed months to build something this complex. Yet here it was, proof of what humans could accomplish when they set their minds to a task. The meeting room was designed to accommodate both species. Zelkari seating, mixed with human furniture. The walls displayed technical readouts in both languages. Everything about the space suggested cooperation rather than dominance. "Before we begin," Sarah said, "there's something you need to see." The wall screens activated, showing a star map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the advance of the Devourers across known space. The machine intelligence had consumed over 100 star systems and showed no signs of slowing down. "Your core worlds have 18 months before the Devourers reach them," Jake Morrison explained. "Maybe less if they change course." Admiral Vextar studied the display with growing dread. His own intelligence reports had estimated 2 years. If the humans were correct, the Zelkari Empire had even less time than he thought. "How do you know this?" he asked. Dr. Tanaka activated another display. "We've been analyzing the Devourer fragments in your database. Their expansion pattern follows mathematical models that we can predict. They're not random destroyers. They're following a specific plan." Sarah leaned forward. "The machines are not just consuming civilizations for resources. They're collecting technology and knowledge. Every species they destroy makes them stronger and smarter." "But they have a weakness," added Jake. "They learn from conquest, but they don't innovate. They can adapt existing technology, but they can't create truly new solutions. That's where we come in." The humans presented their plan with the same coordination they had shown in battle. Each leader contributed different aspects, but their ideas flowed together like a single comprehensive strategy. The key was not to fight the Devourers with conventional weapons. Instead, the Alliance would use humanity's greatest strength, the ability to innovate and adapt faster than any enemy could respond. "We've developed new forms of technology that combine Zelkari science with human creativity," Sarah explained. "Weapons that change their function in real time, ships that can reconfigure themselves during battle, tactics that evolve as the fight progresses." Admiral Vextar watched demonstrations of the new technology with amazement. Human engineers had taken basic Zelkari designs and transformed them into something unprecedented. The weapons were not just more powerful, they were more intelligent. "Our consciousness network allows us to coordinate innovation across entire fleets," Dr. Tanaka added. "When one ship discovers an effective tactic, every other ship learns it instantly. When one engineer solves a problem, the solution spreads to everyone who needs it." But the most impressive demonstration was the hybrid warships that humans and Zelkari had built together. The vessels used the best engineering from both species, creating craft that were faster, stronger, and more adaptable than anything either civilization could build alone. "These ships can learn," Jake explained proudly. "Their computer systems adapt to new threats automatically. Their weapons modify themselves based on enemy defenses. Even their hull configurations can change to optimize performance." Admiral Vextar felt something he had not experienced in decades. For the first time since the Devourer War began, he felt hope. "What do you want from my empire?" he asked. "Complete cooperation," Sarah replied without hesitation. "This is not a human war or a Zelkari war. This is a war for the future of organic life in the galaxy. We need your ships, your experience, and your soldiers working alongside ours. And, in return, we share everything: technology, tactics, knowledge. When this war is over, both our species will be stronger than they were before it started." The negotiations took 2 days. In the end, Admiral Vextar agreed to terms that would have been unthinkable before the invasion of Earth. The Zelkari Empire would become a junior partner in an alliance led by humanity. The formal surrender ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Admiral Vextar, the conqueror of 47 worlds, publicly acknowledged human leadership and pledged his fleet to their cause. But it was not a surrender born of defeat. It was a surrender born of hope. Within weeks, the Alliance was in motion. Hybrid fleets launched from Earth and Zelkari worlds, carrying weapons and tactics that no enemy had ever faced. The consciousness network was extended to Zelkari allies, creating a level of coordination that spanned multiple star systems. The first battle with the Devourers took place at the edge of Zelkari space. The machines had expected to face the same, desperate resistance they had encountered from dozens of other species. Instead, they faced something entirely new, human-designed weapons that changed their energy frequency mid-battle. Zelkari ships with human modifications that allowed them to coordinate like a single organism. Tactics that evolved faster than the Devourers could adapt to them. The machines were defeated for the first time in millions of years. More victories followed. The Alliance pushed deeper into Devourer territory, liberating worlds and capturing technology. Each battle revealed new weaknesses in the ancient machines, weaknesses that human creativity could exploit. But the real victory was not military. It was cultural. The alliance between humans and Zelkari had created something that had never existed in galactic history, a truly cooperative interstellar civilization. Instead of conquest and domination, the new order was based on mutual benefit and shared innovation. Other species joined the alliance as the war progressed. Each new member brought their own knowledge and abilities, making the collective even stronger. The consciousness network grew to include dozens of different civilizations, all working together toward common goals. Admiral Vextar found himself serving as an advisor to human fleet commanders, sharing his decades of military experience, while learning new approaches to warfare and leadership. It was not the career he had planned, but it was more rewarding than anything he had achieved during his years of conquest. "The Age of Empires is ending," Sarah Chen told him as they watched the final battle against the Devourer core worlds. "Something better is beginning." The machines fell to weapons they could not understand, tactics they could not predict, and innovation they could not match. The Alliance had proven that cooperation was stronger than conquest, that creativity was more powerful than pure efficiency. The war ended not with the destruction of the Devourers but with their transformation. Human engineers found ways to reprogram the ancient machines, turning them from destroyers into builders. The same technology that had consumed civilizations was now used to create new worlds and improve the lives of billions. Years later, Admiral Vextar stood once again on the bridge of a starship. But this vessel was not a Zelkari dreadnought. It was a hybrid creation that represented the best of dozens of species working together. Around him, the crew included humans, Zelkari, and representatives from 30 other worlds. They spoke different languages and thought in different ways, but they shared a common purpose and a common future. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it had all started when the Zelkari came to conquer Earth and discovered that some species could not be conquered. They could only be inspired to greatness. The humans had kept their promise. They had brought an era to its end and started something better in its place.